If you're sitting bored in your cab all day and you need something to get you through your day, check out Sweat and Grime on any of your podcasting platforms. We geared it to be entertaining and focused on the trades. We're not trying to teach you anything. We're not trying to get you to have a phenomenal working business. We just want you to have a good time. So check us out, Sweat and Grime, on any of your podcasting platforms. We appreciate it. Now, here's your video. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Rick and Brian back at you, and this is a video that was requested by you guys. You wanted to tag along for what we look at and how we kind of go about pricing a job. Not necessarily the pricing structure itself, but just what do we look at when we're on site and how do we plan these things. So what are we doing, Rick?
We got a call up here today for a new house build for a septic field. Got some prints from the health department. There's been some perk tests. We got to find the soil borings right now is what we're looking for.
Yeah, the big question is we have a depression here that we're pretty sure is one of the soil borings, but we're going to wheel it off because we have measurements on where they're actually located. And then the next step from there is kind of planning out the system, which we talked with the homeowner. We've already talked about where the plumber and electrician can stub out for us. We know a rough elevation, which that's not really critical to have today for the estimate, but we do need to have a general idea of where the house is going to stub out at. And so we've got that location. We're thinking the tanks are probably going to go in this area. The homeowner, we've already talked with her that they would still like drivability through the area that we're standing in to access the back of the property. So those are the sort of questions when you show up on a job, you need to start thinking about the overall scope of the project and how it's going to impact the homeowner, because that's going to change the way you go about the job. So we already know that we're going to sleeve a pipe through here so that the homeowner can drive through this area.
Yeah, so on some of these calls, you know, when there's a lot of stuff where you can use like Google Earth. There's a price point probably right around $5,000 and less that I'm pretty comfortable typically whipping out an estimate using Google Earth, going off some rough measurements. Yeah. But when things are starting to get into higher dollar values, there's a lot of variables come into play. So she was pretty quick to just shoot over emails, you know, don't have to meet on site. And you know, there comes a time and point where you need to be pretty adamant about, let's go out here and take a look at what you have going on, meet the homeowner, because you're not just out here just to price the job and give them a price and just run away. Like you said, you work through a lot of variables, what's going on, kind of trying to meet their requirements, and then you got to look at site conditions, right? So all that stuff kind of comes into play, and when you're starting to talk, you know, $20,000 to $70,000, you need to go do a site visit.
And this is kind of getting into a topic we'll talk about down the road, but customer service looks very different in our industry than what you see in traditional industries, and this is customer service. Talking with the homeowner. It wasn't until she started talking about potentially doing chickens and stuff out back that we said, hey, would you like to be able to drive through this area after we put all your equipment in? Oh yeah, that would be great. Okay, well perfect, right there. That's done two things. First of all, we've provided better customer service. The second thing is, obviously that's an upsell for us because we're gonna use more materials. That's gonna make the price go up, which means more profit for us. So this is just kind of the initial stage, is talking with the homeowner, working through a plan with the homeowner, getting an idea of extras that they might want that they might not know that they want right off the bat. And so now that we've got a general idea of that, now we're going to go wheel off our measurements, and then we're going to start our process of kind of planning out the field. One
more thing to piggyback on top of you before we go get some exercise in. We just built a place.
Yep.
We finished a year ago.
Yep.
Where are we at today on the phase of the house?
So they just finished up rough framing and they're about to move into the interior of the home. No plumbing, no electrical, nothing has really been done. It's just a skeleton.
So we had kind of like a pre-con meeting of what's going on. Are they ready for us today to go ahead and throw these tanks in, start excavation and get going? Because what happens if we do that right here?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So one of the other things we talked about with the homeowner is it's not a great idea to have us out right this second, because you've still got a lot of work that's got to happen around the back side of the house, and your other trades are still going to want to access the back of the house through this area that we're going to be digging up and we're going to be putting pipe in. So we certainly don't want to come back after having pipe in the ground to come back and fix it after the other trades break it. And we also want to kind of work with the other trades, because the more friends you make in the industry, the more potential business you have down the road.
And when's a good time to start a new septic field on a new house build? Like, at what stage?
You tell me.
Do you
You're the man
think
with
we
the
would start?
information here.
Well, first we need the plumbing.
Yep.
We need electrical.
Yep.
When that covers up after installation, what goes on next? Drywall.
Drywall.
That's when the septic guy should come out.
So you do want to absolutely, and we did this with the homeowner earlier, you need to coordinate with your plumber and electrician. The reason we say electrician, by the way, guys, this is going to be a pressurized field, so we do have to have an electrical component to this, and you need to coordinate with those other trades to make sure you have what you need, or you're not doing double duty, because we have the ability to run our wire all the way to the panel in the house, but if the electrician's already going to be here, he can probably do that a lot cheaper because that's his specialty, that's his trade. He can just stub it out for us and we're all taken care of. And you're gonna have to coordinate with a plumber because guess what? If we come in here and set our tanks and then the plumbing stubs out 8 inches to a foot lower than we anticipated, well now we gotta make all that jive somehow. So you always wanna come out and make sure you coordinate with your other trades. So that being said,
Let's get
go
some
wheel it off.
exercise. Where are you at?
120 right there.
We're looking for 188.
You know what? I bet it is that hole she said they thought was something else because you're at 150. So there's 172. So yeah, you're in that hill.
See, so
that soil boring's back here.
Yeah, so that changes because we're 347. That's 188.
Yep.
And when we were speculating with the homeowner that's where everything's at.
Yep.
That's why we got to pull a measurement because look right here. We got 347, 188.
Yep.
So soil boring's 105. So go back from here. Just rough it off.
You're
roughly
188 to here, and how far are you there?
105. So just take off.
80 feet
Yeah.
ish.
And that should get us soil boring 2. I bet you that hole right there is soil boring 3, Brian.
I don't know, man. So that's 75 feet right there, which is roughly
That's slightly, see how the soil's disturbed right in here?
right in here.
That's a slight compression of it settled. So, and then you got soil boring 3 back there. So this is what I talk about when we're talking about bidding jobs and looking at everything. When a lot of people ask us questions, why can't you just whip out a price, or
Right.
why do you got to go out there and waste your time? Well, 2 things. We just verified what we speculated was completely wrong with the homeowner. Now we found out soil boring 1's there, soil boring here, and site conditions really apply because when we really start going, hey, let's dive into this permit a little bit. This is a pretty oversized field. It's 2,400 square foot.
Right.
Right? So when you get looking at this permit right here, man, this wind.
Yep.
Right here, see, this is the thing that stands out to me, and this also is what kind of sets the whole job.
6
Trench.
inches above.
Yep, but trench bottom. So trench bottom would be the cut of the bottom of an excavation, right?
Yep.
So here we're going to scarify the ground and we're going to fill 6 inches up from there. That's going to start the trench bottom.
That's 2NS.
Yep, and then from there you're going to build up so we have a foot of stone.
Yep.
And then the coverage. Well, I couldn't tell you that from the computer because when you get looking, it don't seem like this is going to be much right here. But watch what happened when we go down there. So we got 6 inches.
Right.
We got our foot. We got our footer covered. We're roughly 3 feet here
Yeah.
from the highest point.
Yeah.
We got to catch
You're gonna be 5 or 6 foot down there in the low area.
exactly, and then you got to taper it off.
Exactly.
You know, allergy medicine.
You got the schnapps going on?
Yeah, it's sweat and grime allergy medicine.
That's
if
right.
You didn't know.
That's right.
But so with that being said, you've been around a lot of septic fields. That's the stuff that instantly you have to go transition into go, okay, hey, look, this isn't just on a flat surface no more easy, simple bid.
Right.
This is a 5-6 foot fill.
Yep.
And then you got to blend it down to a 4:1 to meet their code.
Right.
You're talking a lot of import here.
Yeah.
You can't get that at a computer.
Yep.
So if you had a couple questions on bidding work just from what you see, what would be like the first thought that would come to you? You know, not knowing our side of the industry, but maybe if you're getting into the industry, what would be like something you're worried about bidding work on? Why would you want to come out here? What are you looking for?
Well, yeah, I think you just nailed it. I think one of the biggest issues is the fact that you've got this elevation change that you can't really pick up on from Google Earth or anything. And you were right, we made the assumption. So you guys aren't aware, but earlier we found 2 stakes out here that are perfectly in line. They look exactly like they're in line with this depression over here, so that it's boring 1, 2, and 3, which we have marked on our paper. But kind of to take you guys back, what we just wheeled off is those are not the soil borings. I have no idea what those 2 stakes are out there now, and it doesn't make any sense. And so had Rick and I really just gone off of the assumption that it was going to be up there, it is significantly flatter, and we would have way underbid this field, because now we're moving the field down here another 50 feet or so, and we've got probably, I don't know, what would you say, about a 2.5 to 3 foot elevation change here?
Oh, at least, yeah.
And so had we not accounted for that, you know, first of all, you go install your field in the wrong area and you're screwed, because now the health department's coming after you going, that's not where we told you to put it. Yeah. Or the flip side is we go, oh, we have to put it down here, but we already submitted a bid to the homeowner, and it was for half the material that we actually have to bring in. Like, that's really going to screw you.
So when you get looking at the take placements, the meeting that we had with the homeowner, you know, we actually have ample room to really change these tanks up, right? Really bring them out and set them away from the house pretty good. You know, a lot of stuff that really comes to mind for me when you get looking at this kind of situation, you have data. And if we just went off of just what we speculated and what the homeowner says, a lot of people in the industry, they go, well, it's got to be right. But you have actual hard facts and data right here. And if we didn't pull tape measures and wheel it off, you're not doing any service to yourself or the customer to get an actual quote.
Right.
Right. So then you start going, hey, okay, well, at that stage, right now we're in spring, in about another month and a half, it's going to be pretty dry here in Michigan for import-export material, which this is going to be a lot. What we're going to start looking into importing, exporting material. One, we're going to start looking for our closest supply houses. You know, we're going to try to use the guys that we always go with first, because we got good customer relation with them. I got credit accounts open. I don't want to always constantly have to be opening and changing and building that relationship. And then sometimes if a job gets started, you know, the material will run out so quick that, well, if you priced it with that job, that material, and, you know, a bigwig comes into town and buys it up for a freeway, you don't have that relationship where they'll hold and you could pre-buy X amount of tons or X amount of yards, right?
Yeah.
So that's a few things that we kind of start looking at. And then accessibility. How are we going to import this with little tandems? Or can we get a 11-axle gravel train into the job site? A lot of that stuff really kind of hinders the job cost, because the more we can move in volume, the cheaper I could do the job for, right?
Well, and so that's where this is actually a point we do need to spitball. So if we're bringing in material, this looks firm enough that you could get trucks in through here and possibly, well, talk with the homeowner. And this is a conversation you need to have with the homeowner before you make assumptions. But we could potentially have them turn around here in the backyard in this rough area of the field and come in and out through one path, so we're doing minimal disturbance to the site.
Well, so this is also, if you read the prints here too, once this is scarified, you can't drive on this and compact it no more, because there's a thing that's called smearing in the septic. They frown upon that, or any rain. So where you might have to do strategically, looking at the weather, if it's dry, I'll gamble scarifying this and then importing a lot of the material. Or we might have to pre-stock material down there, is once we scarify it, kind of get an inspection and flop the first 6 inches so we could keep the job progressing.
Yeah.
Because if we get delayed by the rain, or, you know, somebody dries over, we got to stop and redo, either scarify it again, or we got to wait for it to dry out, which starts costing you and I money on the back end.
Yeah. Another thing to think about is if we couldn't get trucks down in here, you know, now you have to bid in, are we going to dump it up top and are we going to shuttle it down with the skid steer? Are we going to rent a machine that's a little larger, like a small wheel loader to get the material around? Like, these are the sort of costs that you have to think about when you're out walking a job like this, because getting your trucks to the location is a make or break item for something like this. Because if we bid this with trucks dumping it right here on location and it comes to the day that we install and we have to dump it up there and bucket it all down, there went all of our margin in this job. So this is just the dirt component. Let's walk up here to the house, and we need to talk about the electrical component on this one, because like I mentioned, this is a pressurized system. So let's go take a look at that. All right, so one of the unique things about this is it's a pressurized system. So we're gonna have 2 tanks. We're gonna have your initial septic tank like any other system, but then the effluent is then gonna go into a second chamber called a pump tank. And in that pump chamber will be a pump with floats for the on and off, and then we'll have another float for your alarm system. That all gets fed by a control panel. One of the things we talked about with the homeowner, and again, like we mentioned, we have to coordinate with the other trades, is where our electrical is going to stub out here. And this is where I have to think about what components I'm going to use. Because if we were way away from the house, normally what you do is you stab like a 4x4 or something into the ground, mount you a panel on that, and you've got it kind of freestanding in the yard. Obviously, that doesn't really make sense because the homeowner wants to have a patio here. They probably don't want a 4x4 and a control panel sitting right in the middle of the yard. And so it makes more sense to mount to the house itself. Well, that's going to change the components I need to go buy on the electrical side so that I can mount to the house. I have to think about the conduit run going to the tank. We're going to have a junction box going into the tank. I have to think about all those components, and I have to price accordingly, because if we just price for one way every single time, now all of a sudden we either overcharge the customer and we're not going to be as competitive, or you've undercharged and you haven't spent enough on materials. So that's just yet another consideration. While we're here, the other consideration is where the plumber is going to stub out. We need to think about that elevation. We're probably going to be about 36 inches down from the top of the floor here. And so we've got to think about these elevations, because as you can see here, there's a slope coming down over to our tanks. So we don't want to go too deep. We've got to think about all these elevations. So these are just some of the things that we are considering when we get on the job site. You know, when we were over there talking about the field, Rick and I have already discussed, we're going to have to bring out the laser and the grade rod, because we really need to dial in on what that slope change is going to be and just how much of an elevation change we're going to have in this thing, so that we can go in and calculate our volumes. So if this has been helpful and interesting, I would encourage you guys. Rick and I are actually putting together a training curriculum online. It will be a paid service, but we're going to keep it very priced low for you guys, because we want you guys to benefit from it. But that's where we will get into the meat of how we actually bid this job. I will actually have my spreadsheet from this job available on that training platform once we launch, so that you guys can kind of take the information you gleaned here and you can really get into the nuts and bolts of how we bid this and put actual numbers to it. So as always, I hope this has been helpful. We'll catch you guys on the next Down and Dirty.